I never imagined the words forensic clerk and Grandpa's farm would ever belong in the same story. But here we are. It all began the day a woman named Karen, because of course her name was Karen, stormed into the county office wearing sunglasses bigger than her ego and declared that my late grandfather had willed her his farm. You heard that right. Apparently, my granddad, who passed away 15 years ago and couldn't even spell her last name, had, according to her, decided from beyond the grave to hand over his 40-acre farm to a woman he'd never met. That farm wasn't just land. It was my childhood, my memories, and the only inheritance that truly meant something. So when the county clerk called saying, Mr. Daniels, there's a probate claim here that your grandfather left everything to a Karen Whitmore, I thought it was one of those scam emails that somehow got promoted to real life. I showed up the next morning half asleep, ready to laugh this off until I saw her. Karen stood there, grinning like she'd outsmarted the entire legal system, clutching a folder stuffed with papers. I could tell instantly this was going to be one of those weeks. She had that I've watched 2 seasons of Suits, so now I'm basically a lawyer kind of energy. Loud voice, wild hand gestures, calling everyone sweetheart like she owned the place. Then she slammed a stack of papers onto the clerk's counter and declared, "As per the probate directive, I'm here to claim ownership of the Whitmore Daniels estate." The clerk blinked, confused, and replied, "Ma'am, there's no such estate on record." Karen huffed and said, "Well, there will be once you process my documents. I swear, if confidence alone could win court cases, she'd have been Chief Justice before lunch." And the kicker? Every single page was printed in Comic Sans. No joke, Comic Sans font. Pastel pink ink and fake notarization stamps that looked like she'd drawn them in Microsoft Paint, even a clip art seal. That read, "Official Seal of the Whitmore Legal Authority." That should have been the end of the circus, but this county had seen stranger things. So they filed it pending verification. Enter Martha, the forensic clerk. Picture a sweet grandma who bakes cookies on weekends but can probably spot a forged signature from orbit. She peered through her glasses, examined Karen's documents, and said calmly, "Honey, this paper smells like fresh printer ink." Karen shot back, "It's aged parchment." Martha didn't even blink. "Aged since last Tuesday, maybe." I nearly burst out laughing. But the humor faded fast when Martha scanned the pages under her verification lamp and froze. "Uh-oh," she said. Never words you want to hear from someone holding your family's supposed will. She tilted the paper, revealing faint blue smudges, digital signature overlays. Karen had literally copied my granddad's signature from an old newspaper article and pasted it onto the will. The room went silent. Karen stammered, That's authentic!" Martha smiled sweetly. "Sweetheart, it's authentic Photoshop." I thought that was the end. Case closed. But then Karen, in full delusional glory, blurted out, "Well, if the Daniels family won't hand over the land peacefully, I'll just take it through adverse possession." Every jaw in the room dropped. Martha turned to me and whispered, "Did she just threaten to steal your land legally?" I nodded, biting back laughter. Karen really thought she'd discovered some cheat code in property law. My granddad's farm wasn't just dirt. It had an old barn, a pond, and a busted tractor everyone in town took selfies with. It was history. And this woman thought she could fake a will, squat, and win ownership like it was Monopoly. That's when things started spiraling from ridiculous to outright chaos. That afternoon, Karen rolled up to the farm in her shiny SUV, parked dead center in front of the barn, and hammered a sign into the dirt that read, "Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." The level of audacity could have earned her a gold medal. Within an hour, half the town had driven by to gawk. People were snapping photos like it was a tourist attraction. Even the mailman texted me, "Dude, there's a lady guarding your grandpa's cornfield in a folding chair." I wasn't about to argue with her in front of an audience, so I called the sheriff's office. Deputy Ray, who's known me since I was 10, pulled up in his cruiser. He took one look at the scene and asked, "Ma'am, do you live here?" Karen puffed out her chest and declared, "I own this property." Ray squinted, nodded toward the barn, and said, "Ma'am, there's a chicken sitting on your car hood. You sure you want to start this conversation?" Karen didn't back down. She waved her Comic Sans will in his face like it was the Constitution. Ray glanced at the paper once and said flatly, "Ma'am, this isn't a legal document. This looks like a middle school project." That's when she snapped. Karen accused the entire sheriff's department of conspiring with the Daniels family and threatened to take her case to federal court. Ray just sighed, radioed dispatch, and said, "Yeah, we're gonna need backup, preferably from the comedy division." By sunset, Karen was still fuming, the neighbors were laughing, and I figured that was the end of it. But just as I sat down for dinner, my phone rang. It was Martha, the forensic clerk. "Mr. Daniels," she said, voice low and serious, "you might want to come back to the office. We found something Karen shouldn't have access to." My stomach dropped. "What now?" Martha continued. "She filed another document this morning. It's not just a fake will this time. It's a forged death certificate." I froze. Karen had just taken her scam to a federal crime level. This wasn't just a delusional trespasser anymore. She was a full-blown fraud artist. Somehow, I was about to take her down with a county clerk, a broken printer, and a box of oatmeal cookies. The next morning, I walked into the county office, coffee in hand, already bracing for bad news. Martha met me at the counter and said, "Mr. Daniels, we found out Karen submitted a death certificate for you." I blinked. "For me? I'm literally standing here." Apparently, Karen decided that instead of contesting my inheritance, she'd just declare me legally dead. Why argue with the living when you can unalive them on paper, right? Martha slid the document across the counter like it was radioactive. I looked down and nearly spit out my coffee laughing. The header read, "Certificate of Death, County of North Carolina, Carolina." She misspelled the state. The date of death? February 31st. A day that doesn't even exist. And the cause of death? Severe allergic reaction to paperwork. Martha just sighed and muttered, "Well, she gets points for creativity." But the situation was about to take a turn from ridiculous to downright unbelievable, because Martha's supervisor, Tom, was about to uncover something that made even her fake will look like child's play. Tom, the county supervisor who hadn't laughed since the Nixon administration, decided to take charge. He called Karen on speakerphone to clarify a few details. I stood there beside his desk, coffee trembling in my hand, trying not to grin. Tom said in his most polite government voice, "Miss Whitmore, could you please confirm where Mr. Daniels was buried?" Without hesitation, Karen replied, "At Pine Grove Cemetery, near the big oak tree." Tom slowly turned toward me, one eyebrow raised. Then he said, "Ma'am, that's our dog park." There was a pause on the line long enough to hear her ego crack. Karen stammered, well, maybe they turned it into one later." Tom muted the call, looked at me, and whispered, "She's committing fraud with the confidence of a game show contestant." But he wasn't done yet. He called down to the county's digital records division, a group of caffeine-fueled tech wizards who looked like they'd been raised on crime dramas and energy drinks. Within an hour, they found the smoking gun. Karen had accessed restricted probate files using a stolen login. Not just any login, the retired clerk's old ID number. I asked, "How the hell did she get that?" And that's when the comedy turned gold. Turns out, Karen had joined a Facebook group called Real Legal Professionals of the Corollas. Except it wasn't real, it was a meme page. Someone had posted a throwback photo of the retired clerk, and Karen, in her infinite wisdom, thought it was a secret access code. She literally printed the man's ID badge straight off the photo and used it to verify herself at the courthouse. When the IT guy told us, Martha laughed so hard she had to sit down. "She tried to hack the county system with a Facebook post," she wheezed. Meanwhile, Karen was still camped out at my grandfather's property, doubling down on her delusions. She'd painted Whitmore Ranch across the barn in dripping red paint, and misspelled Whitmore. She hosted a backyard BBQ to celebrate her land, attended by 3 confused delivery drivers and 1 stray cat. Oh, and she even posted an online ad claiming she was offering spiritual farm tours on my property. By then, Martha and I decided it was time to escalate. She filed an official fraud report, and the county attorney scheduled an emergency hearing. But before that could even happen, the sheriff's office called again. Deputy Ray was laughing so hard he could barely get the words out. "Buddy, you're not going to believe this. She called 911 on herself. Apparently, one of the neighbors saw Karen digging in the backyard and thought she was burying something. And knowing Karen, that something was probably another fake legal document." When the deputies rolled up, Karen completely lost her composure. She threw her arms in the air and declared she was conducting a land consecration ceremony as the rightful heir. Then, with a straight face, she accused the officers of trespassing. When they asked for proof of ownership, she proudly held up her comic sans-filled will and the fake death certificate. Yes, the one claiming I'd died from a paperwork overdose. The deputy sighed into his radio. Dispatch, we've got a live one. Literally. The deceased is standing right here." By that point, the entire county knew about the ghost of Mr. Daniels. Every clerk, deputy, and barista within 10 miles was in on the joke. Even the mayor stopped by the office just to hear the story firsthand. But the absurdity wasn't over yet. Martha, the forensic clerk, came sprinting into the break room holding a new folder, whispering, she filed something else. It was a transfer of deed for the whole property, notarized supposedly by a judge. But Martha recognized the signature instantly. It wasn't from any real judge. It was the Judge Judy logo. Karen had literally copied it from a screenshot and pasted it under Notary Public. At that moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or file for witness protection. Karen wasn't just forging documents anymore. She was building her own cinematic legal universe. But this time, Martha's smile faded. "This isn't just ridiculous," she said. "It's felony forgery, fraud, and impersonating a judicial officer." Then she dropped the bombshell. "The county prosecutor just approved a warrant. We're taking this to court." When court day arrived, it felt less like a hearing and more like the season finale of reality TV. Half the county showed up. Even the judge had a "why did I skip lunch for this?" look. I sat behind the prosecutor as Karen strutted in, wearing a hot pink blazer, oversized sunglasses, and carrying a glittery binder labeled Evidence of Divine Inheritance. Whispers spread through the courtroom. "That's the Comic Sans lady." Karen took her seat with movie star confidence. When asked to state her name, she flipped her hair and announced, "Karen Whitmore Daniels, legal heir and custodian of ancestral lands." The judge blinked. "Custodian of what now?" Before she could dig the hole deeper, the prosecutor began. "Your Honor, the county presents proof the defendant forged multiple legal documents, including a will, a fake death certificate, and a fraudulent deed notarized by a television personality." The judge squinted. "I'm sorry, did you say Judge Judy?" The prosecutor nodded gravely. "Yes, Your Honor. Exhibit C shows the logo, as seen on TV." The room exploded in laughter. Even the stenographer had tears in her eyes. Karen huffed, "Well, Judge Judy is a judge." The real judge replied dryly, "Ma'am, she's not a notary." Karen crossed her arms. "Same thing as she signs papers on TV." Then came Martha's moment. She took the stand like a Southern superhero, set down a thick stack of files, and said sweetly, "Your Honor, I've seen wild things in my 32 years, but this woman takes the cake and the frosting." She explained how the fake documents were printed on modern paper, with ink that didn't even exist when Grandpa was alive. The projector showed the fake death certificate, with Carcolina and February 31st in bold. The judge nearly fell out of his chair. "Miss Whitmore," he asked, "you do know February only has 28 days, right?" Karen nodded confidently. That year was a leap year. The judge deadpanned. Not that much of a leap. The prosecutor could have rested his case right there, but Karen made it even easier. She stood, pointed at me, and screamed, "He's the fraud! He's pretending to be alive!" The judge looked at me. "Mr. Daniels, are you alive?" I stood up, waved, and said, "Pretty sure, Your Honor. I even had breakfast." The courtroom erupted again. Someone in the back shouted, "Zombie Daniels!" The judge had to bang his gavel just to calm them down. Finally, the prosecutor presented the knockout blow, metadata proving every fake document was made on Karen's laptop under the file name New Will Final Real This One.pdf. The judge looked at her. Care to explain, Ms. Whitmore? Karen sniffed. My enemies must have done that. The judge replied, Yes, apparently in your living room. Game over. Karen was found guilty of forgery, fraud, and attempted property theft. She got probation, a fine, and a lifetime ban from filing claims in the county. As she was escorted out, she tripped over her glitter binder, yelling, This is an injustice! Martha leaned over and whispered, Think she'll appeal on Judge Judy's show? A few days later, I was back at Grandpa's farm. The fake Whitmore Ranch paint was half scrubbed off the barn, and the only traces of Karen left were a broken lawn chair and a glitter pen. The sheriff stopped by and chuckled. Well, you survived being legally murdered. I laughed. Guess I can add returned from the dead to my resume. Martha showed up soon after with a batch of cookies and a framed headline. Local woman arrested after trying to inherit land from living man. We stood there under the sunset, laughing at how absurd it all was. Your granddad would be proud, Martha said. Not just 'cause you kept the land, but because you didn't lose your mind doing it. I smiled. Oh, I almost did. But at least now I've got one heck of a story. And with that, peace returned to the Daniels family farm. No Comic Sans wills, no fake judges. Just a new sign out front that read, Daniels Family Farm, no Karens allowed. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber helps me bring you more wild HOA and suburban justice stories. Tap the bell. You won't want to miss the next one.